Divine tree, it's really the divine tree. Cries of exclamations reverberated throughout the world, as everyone's expression changed, with most people showing a look of reverence. Thanks to the deliberate guidance of the Supreme Council, Wuxia's presence on Earth had already been deified, equated to that of a guardian deity. For Earth's sake, he fought alone in the alien world, even battling the azure dragon of the other world for years in the unknown depths of the universe, shattering star systems in the process. Though these claims were somewhat exaggerated, the main thing was they did not blemish Wuxia's accomplishments. Rather, it continued to inspire countless young people. Over the past 2 years, innumerable youths, filled with passion and fighting spirit, had crossed through the Stargate and ventured into the foreign domains, particularly to planet Alicia. At this moment, Wuxia shifted his gaze to Earth, where he clearly saw one life form after another step out of their homes, hands clasped together, bowing respectfully toward his mental projection. Among them were even life forms of Tier 4, humbly lowering their heads. Ling Er, it's a pity you didn't become a deity, Wuxia's playful voice rang in Ling Er's mind, laced with a hint of teasing. Humph. With a proud tilt of her nose and a slight pout, Ling Er replied with some smugness, if Master can conquer the vast starry skies, I wouldn't mind becoming a deity, leading the masses for Master. Wuxia could not help but softly chuckle, wondering if Ling Er was in cahoots with Golden Monkey, both eagerly anticipating his conquest of the stars. Then again, in this world, he had few worthy opponents. If he did not truly engage in such conquests, it would indeed be a waste. At this thought, even Wuxia's usually calm heart began to stir with restlessness. However, first things first, his immediate priority was to take advantage of the spare time and elevate the strength of my closest subordinates, or rather, his friends and even family. Now that he had stepped into Tier 6, he had the ability to nurture others. If he did not make good use of this power, it would be a disservice to his title as the Divine Tree. As a divine tree, a heaven and earth spirit tree, his entire being was a treasure trove. He had too many means at his disposal. Strengthening numerous individuals without harming his own foundation was all too simple for him. Just like Titan, who had fused with the steel elemental heart, and Tundra, who had merged with the tree heart. As for others, such as the 8 peregrine falcons, Snake Queen, and others, Wuxia had arranged for them to reside deep within the lake of vitality in the realm of life. With access to the Tier 6 spirit essence, they lacked no resources. And given their astonishing innate talents, rapidly advancing would be a piece of cake. As for why Wuxia did not give them treasures like the tree heart or the steel elemental heart, it was simple. Such supreme treasures were limited and naturally reserved for those who needed them the most. Moreover, mutant beasts like peregrine falcons, Snake Queen, and the others had few opportunities to engage in large-scale battles. The ones truly fighting for Wuxia's empire were the 10 divine beasts. Thus, the 10 divine beasts' cultivation was of utmost priority. In that sense, it could be said that Wuxia was playing favorites. Of course, the ones he favored the most were his most trusted confidants, such as Ling Er and Nine Tails. There was no need to mention Nine Tails, having already stepped into the true God realm, she no longer needed Wuxia's help. However, Ling Er. With a deep gaze, Wuxia looked at the girl resting on his branch, her head leaning against it, looking just like a sleeping princess. His face softened with affection. With a gentle brush of his spiritual energy, he tidied up her disheveled hair. At the same time, he reinforced the protective barrier around her, ensuring her safety. Swish, with a sudden burst of speed, the branch carrying Ling Er sped even faster toward Wuxia's true form. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Thinking of all that Ling Er had done for him and Misty Mountains, Wuxia's resolve grew even stronger. If necessary, I am willing to make sacrifices to properly nurture Ling Er. With that thought in mind, Wuxia's gaze shifted toward the realm of void. The realm of void was a place of exile, the most unfathomable of Wuxia's 9 realms, where countless powerful transcendents were imprisoned. Among them were the Dragon Clan's 3 Dragon Kings, each a demigod and half-step tier 5 transcendent, as well as the Elf Clan, including Elf Queen's 3 elders, and many other mighty transcendents of Alicia. They were all captured during the relentless assaults led by Sarcosuchus and Little Tenth. Now, it is time to squeeze out the last bit of value from them. Those who refuse to submit will be annihilated. What Wuxia was planning to do was rob them of their souls, preventing them from even reincarnating. It was no cruelty on his part. After all, Ling Er was originally just a wisp of soul, gradually growing into who she was today. At her core, Ling Er still remained a lone soul. For such beings, the simplest and most direct path to growth was through devouring other souls. However, to avoid any backlash, Wuxia decided to wipe out their consciousness, leaving behind only the purest soul essence for Ling Er. With this in mind, Wuxia's gaze fell upon a massive golden dragon. Roar! The dragon let out a violent bellow, full of rage, anxiety, and helplessness. The once fierce and restless golden dragon king was now utterly exhausted. The 2 years of imprisonment had pushed him to the limits. At that moment, the Dragon King sensed a terrifying gaze fixed upon him. "You've come. Huh, come on then, kill me." "I will never submit," the Dragon King roared louder and louder, trying desperately to conceal the growing dread in his heart. Yet, no matter how much he tried, he could not hide the weakness that came from deep within. Humph! With a cold snort, Wuxia's gaze on the Golden Dragon King turned icy. Though he admired the Dragon King's talents, it was too late now. The Dragon King's combat strength was indeed impressive, but Wuxia no longer had the luxury of time to subdue him. "Since you don't know what's good for you, then," Wuxia's cold voice echoed through the void. The Golden Dragon King was completely shaken hearing this. A chill rose from the depths of his soul, causing both his soul and body to tremble. "Wait!" Realizing the danger, the Golden Dragon King promptly shouted, panic filling his voice. However, before he could react, */ a silver flash cut through the void, instantly cutting through the Golden Dragon King's entire being. Strangely, no wound appeared on the dragon's body, only a pair of eyes filled with disbelief slowly fading into eternal silence. This was the Soul Breaker, one of the 6 flying daggers of Wuxia's Tao-protecting artifact, the Radiant Galaxy. Fused with mermaid tear, it was designed to annihilate souls. Roar! A sorrowful dragon roar had barely echoed when it was abruptly cut off. Accompanying this, a dragon soul, miniature version of the Golden Dragon King, rose from his carcass. However, before the dragon soul could fully manifest, another silver flash zoomed through the void. Tearing through the space, the flying dagger, with a glimmering tear-like gem on its blade, embedded itself perfectly in the center of the dragon soul's brow. Roar! Another heart-wrenching dragon roar echoed through the void, the last echoes of its lament. This was the end, his final cry. With his consciousness completely erased by Wuxia's flying dagger, what remained was pure mass of soul energy. This was the gift Wuxia had prepared for Ling Er. The complete soul of a superior race, a dragon no less, was bound to elevate the quality of Ling Er's soul significantly. Smiling to himself, Wuxia extended a branch, absorbing the soul energy left behind by the Golden Dragon King. Soon, an endless stream of soul energy flowed along the branch, moving toward Ling Er, who was still sitting in the starry sky, nestled within Wuxia's branches. Well. Waking up in a daze, Ling Er looked around in confusion. The next moment, the branch, which was gently cradling her like a swing, caught her eyes. It was radiating a golden glow, warm and soothing, evoking an indescribable feeling. Just by coming in contact with it, Ling Er felt a tremor through her entire being, as if she was bathing in a hot spring. "Master, this is," Ling Er, seemingly noticing what it was, exclaimed in surprise, her voice trembling with excitement. "This is your gift, a soul of a demigod. Absorb it well and don't let my efforts go to waste." As Yuziyu spoke, his branch trembled slightly, as more soul energy surged through the branch, flowing into Lingnier. In an instant, she was bathed in golden light. Subtly, the shadow of a giant golden dragon began to emerge behind her. Meanwhile, the realm of void, this place of exile, had fallen into a deathly silence. As the divine ability, dark domain, dissipated, everyone imprisoned within the realm of void witnessed the moment when a streak of silver light burst forth from Yuziyu, slaying the golden dragon king. The sight filled them with terror. An overwhelming sense of fear and dread spread throughout the entire realm of void. "So, he's finally making his move on us," with a bitter voice, the Red Dragon Queen's eyes dimmed with resignation. At that moment, as if unsatisfied, Yuziyu's voice echoed once more through the small world, "Wow, this carcass is quite a treasure. The dragon horns alone can be forged into 2 Tier 5 artifacts. The dragon scales and dragon hide can be used to craft heaps of Tier 5 spirit armors." Each declaration sent chills down the spines of all who heard. Even the prisoners held deep within the realm of void could not help but tremble with fear. And then, as their anxiety reached its peak, Yuziyu's sharp and menacing gaze turned toward the Red Dragon Queen. "So, will you submit? Or face destruction?" His voice was calm, almost casual. But when combined with the memory of how Yuziyu's branches had meticulously dismembered the Golden Dragon King, sparing not even a drop of blood, a wave of indescribable pressure came bearing down on the Red Dragon Queen. Fear, pure, bone-chilling fear, surged from the depths of her soul, freezing her entire being. At this moment, the Red Dragon Queen felt a sensation she had not experienced in ages slowly rising in her heart, fear. "I will submit." 2 years of imprisonment, the sight of the Golden Dragon King's carcass, and Yuziyu's overwhelming power had ultimately condensed into 3 words, echoing through the void. It was not until she uttered these words that the Red Dragon Queen felt a weight lift from her body. Upon closer inspection, she realized her body was drenched in cold sweat. "You know how to assess the situation, at least." Remarking with a soft chuckle, a figure suddenly emerged in the void. Looking towards the source, it was a handsome young elf. This was none other than Yuziyu's void elf form. The switching between his forms, whether it was the Azure Dragon or the void elf, was a way for Yuziyu to temper his soul. Now, taking a step forward, Yuziyu, controlling his elf form, walked slowly towards the Red Dragon Queen. In fact, the Red Dragon Queen was strikingly beautiful. Unlike the bulky, lizard-like appearance typical of most giant dragons, she had a sleek and perfect body. Dark red dragon scales covered her abdomen, while lighter red scales adorned the rest of her body. Upon closer inspection, every palm-sized scale had a flame-like shimmer. Her features were not as rugged as the Golden Dragon King's. Instead, she appeared delicate and petite. By the Dragon Clan standards of beauty, the Red Dragon Queen would be considered a stunning beauty. There were also rumors that dragons possessed the ability to polymorph. Yuziyu thought it might be interesting to have her transform someday to see for himself. But for now, tap, walking steadily through the void, Yuziyu's foot landed on the back of the Red Dragon Queen. The sensation was like stepping on solid ground, but with a trace of warmth, as comfortable as stepping on smooth jade. At this moment, as he looked down at the nervous but unresisting Red Dragon Queen, a faint smile crept onto Yuziyu's face. Quickening his pace, he walked along the length of her spine toward her head. Moments later, standing on her head, Yuziyu reached out and grabbed hold of the Red Dragon Queen's horns. Boom! Instantly, a surge of crimson flames erupted from her, engulfing Yuziyu's elf form. Her voice trembled with tension, laced with fear. However, Yuziyu did not seem angry. The dragon horns were the hardest, yet most sensitive part of a dragon, forbidden for others to touch. Grabbing the Red Dragon Queen's horns was akin to touching her reverse scale, an act that would normally provoke a fierce reaction. However, seeing her trembling under his touch, Yu gently patted her horns. Let's go. Ordering calmly, his spiritual energy surged as a green vortex appeared not far from the Red Dragon Queen, radiating an intense vitality. This was the entrance to the realm of life. This was one of the perks of submitting to Yu, even the place one resided would change. Yes, master, she replied weakly, suppressing her anxiety. Slowly, the Red Dragon Queen spread her wings and flew toward the vortex. Just then, a soft chuckle rang in her ears. When we arrive in the realm of life, let's form a contract. From now on, you'll follow me. And with this, I suppose I'll become a legendary dragon knight. With a playful tone laced with teasing, Yu's lips curled into a mischievous grin. Dragon Knight, just like the legendary sword immortal who spent 1,000 years perfecting a single blade, the Dragon Knight was an incredibly powerful and prestigious profession. Once Yu formally signed a contract with the Red Dragon Queen, his elf form would be able to share a portion of her strength. At that point, his already formidable void elf form would become even more terrifying. Not only would he gain some of the dragon clan's immense strength, but simply inheriting a part of their elemental resistance would already be a significant advantage. This was the terrifying potential of a powerful alliance between two superior races. However, it was Yu's own strength that made this possible. With his overwhelming power, he subdued the dragon clan, wearing down their pride over the course of several years. Only then was his void elf body truly perfected. Smiling to himself, Yu was pleased with the Red Dragon Queen's submission. When we return to the realm of life, we can start preparing to sign the contract. A master-servant contract will do. She's not qualified for an equal contract, Yu thought to himself, deciding the Red Dragon Queen's status in the future. However, he wondered what benefits she might gain from him. Even a master-servant contract would still offer some advantages to the servant. Furthermore, the contract they would sign would be bound their soul. On the surface, it would seem as though Yu's void elf form was the one signing the contract with the Red Dragon Queen. In reality, it was a powerful Tier 6 life form binding itself to the Red Dragon Queen. If she managed to gain even the slightest benefit from Yu, it could propel her to unimaginable heights. However, that would depend on her own fortune. After all, Yu did not fully understand the intricacies of the Dragon Clan's contracts. He had only heard from Golden Monkey that the Dragon Clan's contracts were among the most mysterious and fearsome across the countless worlds. As Yu's void elf form stepped off the Red Dragon Queen and left the realm of void, the eyes of the Azure Dragon, which had transformed into the heaven of the 9 realms, once again fell upon the imprisoned beings within the realm of void. The weakest among them was still at Tier 4, and some were even demigods. Each of them resembled gods and demons, their imposing presence undiminished despite having been imprisoned for 2 years. But now, feeling Yu's gaze, all of them instinctively lowered their heads. At that moment, Yu's voice echoed through the void once more, "Next time I come, I hope you will make a better choice." With those words, Yu's consciousness slowly receded. They still had their uses, and Yu was not in a hurry to wipe them out. It was similar to how one would raise chickens, ducks, geese, and pigs in the countryside, fatten them up, or kill them when needed. Though this comparison might seem cruel, it was the truth. They were his prey, and Yu was the butcher. This was the natural order of things. There was no room for sympathy. After all, if Yu's strength were inadequate and he fell into their hands, his fate would undoubtedly be far more tragic. The law of nature was survival of the fittest. It certainly played out in a bloodier form during the era of transcendence. Those who could not adapt were destined to be eliminated and forgotten. As for the survivors, the fact that they had reached Tier 4 so early in this age meant that their hands were stained with blood. Even the Tree of Life, when it first sprouted, had drained the vitality of half the Elysian continent. In the end, the law of natural selection dictates that only the fittest would be the one to survive. Just when he was finished handling all this, Ling Er also arrived. Slowly lifting his gaze and looking at the girl not far away, whose face was filled with excitement yet tinged with nervousness, Yu Ziyu's lips curled into a smile. Welcome home. As he welcomed her, his branches entwined with each other, weaving a humanoid figure that stretched out its hands to embrace Ling Er. Master, overcome with emotion, Ling Er tightly hugged Yu Ziyu's body, woven from branches. You silly girl. Filled with a kind of fondness that was hard to describe, Yu Ziyu gently patted Ling Er's head. In this moment, the mighty empress, known throughout Earth, transformed into an ordinary little girl. Gone was her previous majesty and cold demeanor as she leaned peacefully into Yu Ziyu's embrace. However, their reunion did not last long. Ling Er was still in the process of absorbing the soul energy of the Golden Dragon King, and she could not afford to linger too long. Go ahead, I've prepared a special place for you to cultivate in the realm of life. I understand, Master. Nodding, Ling Er, accompanied by 9 tails, slowly made her way toward the realm of life. Along the way, the two girls could not help but share laughter and joy. In many ways, Ling Er and 9 tails were the closest of friends. Now, it's time to take care of my own matters. Watching Ling Er and 9 tails leave, Yu Ziyu finally felt at ease, ready to focus on his own cultivation. At present, Old 7th was fusing with the Steel Elemental Heart, Old 8th was adapting to the Tree Heart and his new bloodline, and now Ling Er had returned. The most important individuals were all accounted for. As for others, like Old 9th, Brewmaster, and the Undying Blood Raven, with their exceptional talents, they did not require much attention. Even the Peregrine Falcons, Snake Queen, and war generals such as the Honey Badger and Armored Wild Boar, they have been granted excellent cultivation grounds and fair treatment from Yu Ziyu. This was the extent of what Yu Ziyu could offer them. Not every subordinate was worth his full efforts. For instance, Honey Badger and Armored Wild Boar, though limited in talent, had already received enough attention. How far they would ultimately go depended on their own fortunes. This was not a matter of being heartless. It was just that only those who could keep pace with Yu Ziyu's progress would receive more resources. Otherwise, it would be unfair to the other mutant beasts. For now, it was good enough that Honey Badger and Armored Wild Boar were living peacefully under Yu Ziyu's care. At the very least, following him had given them the hope of reaching Tier 4. With that in mind, Yu Ziyu felt he had not treated them poorly. After all, for most other mutant beasts, reaching even Tier 3 was nearly impossible, let alone Tier 4. In the grand scheme of things, they were born with average talents. Reaching Tier 3 could be said to be their limit. Now, they are already on the verge of Tier 4. Surely, that's more than enough for them. Hiya, heaving a soft sigh, Yu Ziyu chose not to dwell on it. As a ruler, he had to suppress many of his personal feelings and consider the bigger picture. After all, he was not a god, he could not fully nurture every individual. Resources were limited, and how much one could obtain depended on themselves. Moreover, Yu Ziyu had not wronged any of his longtime followers. On the contrary, he had given them many privileges. As these thoughts flashed in his mind, Yu Ziyu felt reassured, and decided that it was time to focus on organizing his own cultivation matters. When it came to his own cultivation, Yu Ziyu exercised the utmost caution. At present, Yu Ziyu possessed 3 forms and 1 body, with his true body rooted deep in the vastness of outer space. After 2 years of uninterrupted cultivation, and observation of the movements of stars, his spiritual energy had become more refined. His understanding of the cosmos had also deepened, and even the crown of his towering form shimmered with the brilliance of stars. Meanwhile, his azure dragon form had become the heaven of the 9 realms itself, embodying the heavenly Tao and growing in harmony with those worlds. As the small worlds prospered, so too did its power. His void elf form, having reached Tier 5, was currently focused on preparing to establish a contract with the Red Dragon Queen. Lastly, the soaring purple flood dragon, now at tier 6 and crowned as a void king, lay coiled deep within the boundless void space. Raising his gaze, Yu's vision pierced through the fabric of space and saw the gargantuan serpent lurking in that strange, otherworldly world. Its immense body resembled that of a true dragon, its scales layered in a dark violet hue that shimmered faintly with an eerie, flickering light. The serpent's violet eyes, cold and ruthless, gazed into the void as if waiting, or perhaps yearning for something. In that instant, Yu's consciousness shifted, and the eyes of the colossal serpent flickered with a spark of intelligence. Hiss, hiss, the soaring purple flood dragon let out a thunderous hiss as Yu's awareness descended into its form, asserting its dominance over the void space. Unlike his true body, which was warm and gentle like jade, the body of the soaring purple flood dragon was cold and dark, and filled with an indescribable hunger. An unquenchable hunger came from its empty belly, urging this body to devour, and devour more. This was the price of becoming a void king. One had to constantly resist the erosion of instinct. If the urge to consume could not be resisted, one would become nothing more than a puppet of desire, no different from a walking corpse. Of course, for Yu's soaring purple flood dragon, a tier 6 life form, if he ever gave in to its hunger, it could easily become a catastrophe for the stars. With just a single bite, or perhaps two, he could bring an end to a habitable planet like Alicia or Earth. However, Yu dared not, and nor did he ever want to. If he did, while this body's power would skyrocket, it would become the target of heavens and the public's wrath. It would not be surprising if heavenly tribulations descended upon it. Yu always believed that staying low-key was the way to go. Besides, with evolution points at his disposal, why would he bother to resort to such destructive, short-sighted actions? Sure, indiscriminate devouring might feel satisfying, but the conversion rate and efficiency were far inferior to that of evolution points. For Yu, evolution points were the key to everything. With Alicia and Earth, his evolution points would come endlessly, far better than simply devouring those planets whole. In this respect, Yu was sharp. At this moment, as he carefully sensed the changes in his body, the corners of Yu's mouth curved upward. Excellent. Truly excellent. As expected, my chance of mastering the supreme principle, the principle of infinity, has increased. As a matter of fact, supreme principles were not as simple as they seem. Each supreme principle was supported by various other principles. To simply put it, principles too had divisions, with the 10 supreme principles standing at the pinnacle. To comprehend a supreme principle, one must first understand many other branches of principles. For example, in the previous era, the immortal of the human race had comprehended one of the 10 supreme principles, principle of good fortune. To comprehend the principle of good fortune, he first needed to master 3 high-level principles, 12 intermediate-level principles, and a large number of low-level principles. Only by comprehending a wide variety of principles could the human immortal manage to comprehend the principle of good fortune. Thus, it was exceedingly difficult to comprehend a supreme principle. For most, even crossing and understanding a single principle was already hard, let alone understanding so many principles. Moreover, understanding them was only the beginning. Knowing which principles to grasp in order to eventually comprehend a supreme principle was also a closely guarded secret. It was public knowledge that the principle of good fortune required 3 high-level principles: life, creation, and soul. However, the 12 intermediate-level principles and even low-level principles were known only to the great sages of the human race, remaining a mystery to everyone else. This was also part of the foundation of the human race. If fortunate, the human race might even produce a second peerless genius who could master the principle of good fortune, thanks to their foundation. The path of principles was exceedingly difficult. Even though understanding a high-level principle could make it easier to comprehend similar intermediate-level and low-level principles, each high-level principle was incredibly hard to access, more so than reaching heaven. The reason Yuziyu believed that his soaring purple flood dragon might bear the potential of the supreme principle of infinity, was because he had touched upon the three high-level principles required for the principle of infinity. These principles were the principle of growth, the principle of devouring, and the principle of conversion. The principle of growth came from Yuziyu's Titan bloodline, which granted him a body capable of infinite growth. The principle of devouring was related to the power Yuziyu obtained from the void behemoth, gluttony, inheriting the authority of hunger, with the potential to further comprehend the principle of devouring. The principle of conversion was simpler. The conversion of energy and the generation of evolution points gave Yuziyu a chance to grasp the principle of conversion. Now, Yuziyu has touched upon the three high-level principles required by the principle of infinity. If he was fortunate enough to fully comprehend these three high-level principles, understanding the other intermediate level and low-level principles would only be a matter of time. At that point, naturally, Yuziyu could hope to bear the principle of infinity. As for the specific intermediate level and low-level principles required for the principle of infinity, Yuziyu was not in a rush to uncover them. Since there was no clear path ahead, he could take time to figure it out. After all, among the 10 supreme principles, the principle of good fortune was somewhat better known to the world. The other supreme principles were shrouded in extreme mystery. To some extent, understanding the supreme principles required guidance from an unseen force. The soaring purple flood dragon seemed destined to bear the supreme principle, infinity. It was not just Yuziyu's belief, it was more like a premonition, inexplicable and profoundly mysterious. Some say that the 10 supreme principles possessed spirits. Rather than saying that one comprehended the 10 supreme principles, it was more accurate to say that these principles selected certain individuals and gradually guided them closer to the principles themselves. Right now, Yuziyu was having that kind of feeling. His soaring purple flood dragon seemed to be guided by an invisible force, slowly leading him towards the path of comprehending the principle of infinity. This was also one reason Yuziyu understood that the three high-level principles necessary for the principle of infinity were growth, devouring, and conversion. Vaguely, he heard a voice telling him that understanding the principle of infinity required these elements. What it truly desires is, suddenly, the cold serpent eyes gleamed with a sharp gleam as Yuziyu realized that his soaring purple flood dragon form craved for life instead. Taking a deep breath, Yuziyu suppressed the impulse within him. What a terrifying life form! Even though it's already this powerful, it still longs for slaughter. This body longs to dye its body red with the blood of its enemies. To satiate its hunger with the flesh of its foes. Nonetheless, if devouring life could bring Yuziyu closer to comprehending the true principle of devouring, then Yuziyu was open to consider it. However, his targets would not be the denizens of Earth or Alicia. Earth and Alicia were his strongholds. Although this body of his yearned for slaughter, it was not desperate enough to feast on anything and everything. It seems the time to venture into other star domains needs to be moved up. Murmuring to himself, Yuziyu's consciousness sank deeper into his soaring purple flood dragon form, settling in for the final consolidation. Not long after, as if sensing something, Yuziyu's gaze suddenly flickered. Lifting his eyes, his gaze seemed to pierce through space. Before long, a scene unfolded before him. A purple elven figure stood face to face with a massive red dragon in the sky of the realm of life. So, it's already time for the contract to be formed, murmuring to himself, Yuziyu could not help but sigh helplessly at how busy he had been recently. Initially, he had planned to consolidate the cultivation of his soaring purple flood dragon form further, but now it was already time for his void elf form to complete the contract. In fact, aside from when he was in combat or deeply immersed in understanding principles, Yuziyu usually managed his other bodies with just a wisp of his consciousness. In simpler terms, even while the majority of his consciousness was devoted to controlling the soaring purple flood dragon, Yuziyu's true body, the immortal tree, and his void elf form would continue to function independently. For instance, his true body remained rooted in the starry sky, perpetually absorbing starlight and spiritual energy. That was cultivation. His true body had already made cultivation an instinct, so even without Yu's conscious guidance, it continued to cultivate on its own. Similarly, his void elf form required only a wisp of his consciousness to handle most tasks, whether it was cultivating or traversing the world. However, for something as crucial as forming a soul contract, that wisp of consciousness was insufficient. Consequently, Yu needed to dedicate a larger portion of his consciousness to this task. Thus, Yu's consciousness shifted. At the same time, in the sky of the realm of life, boom, with a thunderous shook to his mind, a faint crimson mark appeared on the forehead of Yu's void elf form. This crimson mark was the manifestation of Yu's heavenly eye, a strong indication of his consciousness descending into this body. After all, the heavenly eye only responded to Yu's soul. Whichever body his primary consciousness resided in, the heavenly eye would appear there as well. And now, as the blood mark slowly emerged on the forehead of his void elf form, its entire aura changed. It became more sinister, more terrifying, and sent a chill through the hearts of those nearby. Gulp, the Red Dragon Queen, standing in the distance, instinctively swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked after a moment of hesitation, "Master, is something wrong?" As she asked, her blood-stained dragon claws paused mid-air. For some reason, in that brief moment, she felt as though something had changed about her master. He had become even more frightening. "Continue with the ceremony," an icy voice echoed through the void as Yu slowly opened the heavenly eye on his brow, calmly observing the contract ceremony unique to the dragon clan. "Yes, Master," responding respectfully, the Red Dragon Queen once again began channeling her spiritual energy. Boom, the sky roared with the force of a raging river as spiritual energy surged wildly. Moments later, dark red spiritual energy, resembling blazing flames, began to spread, enveloping the Red Dragon Queen in a swirling tornado. At that moment, by the ancient contract, we, the Red Dragon Queen, hereby form a covenant with His Eminence today. From now on, so long as His Eminence lives, so do we. Ancient phrases echoed through the void, spoken in a language unfamiliar to Yu. This was the dragon tongue, a language of higher power. Legend said it resonated with heaven and earth, making it easier to channel one's spiritual energy through its chants. With each spoken word, the world trembled, and day turned to night. Simultaneously, a massive crimson blaze erupted in the sky, with waves of surging crimson flames spreading outward in all directions. However, this was merely the beginning, just the beginning. We, the Red Dragon Queen, humbly request to form this contract. As her voice fell, to Yu's astonishment, a massive magic circle with a diameter of 3,000 meters began to manifest above them, with him and the Red Dragon Queen at its center. It was intricate and profound, and drawn with flame-like energy. At its center was a symbol resembling an ancient hexagram, but, upon closer inspection, the hexagram held countless smaller, complex patterns that flickered continuously. What an extraordinary ceremony! Observing the rare phenomenon, a hint of curiosity flashed on Yu's face. Just then, lifting his gaze, Yu noticed golden droplets of blood falling from the Red Dragon Queen's right claw. Drip, the drop fell at the center of the magic circle, creating ripples like on the surface of a lake. Immediately, flames surged even more intensely, growing hotter and stronger. At the same time, Yu's body trembled slightly as an indescribable heat surged within him. Looking down, Yu saw flames rising from beneath his feet, with a faint silhouette of a giant dragon forming within the flames. Am I supposed to touch its forehead? Seeing the pleading expression on the dragon's face, formed within the sea of flames, an impulse began to rise within his heart. Lifting his finger, he gently pressed it against the dragon's forehead. Boom! Instantly, just as Yu's finger touched the dragon's forehead, his very soul trembled. At the same time, the scarlet flames around him surged violently, while the 3,000-meter-wide magic circle erupted in full force. In the blink of an eye, a crimson pillar of fire, 3,000 meters in diameter, shot into and pierced through the sky. What's that? Far off in the distance, White Tiger, who had been in seclusion, was startled by the sudden crimson pillar rising into the sky. Without hesitation, he spread his wings. Boom! With a loud roar, a white storm erupted around him, forcing countless trees to bow in its wake. At the same time, the Dragon Clan's aura, muttering to himself in a resonant voice, Little Tenth, residing in a secluded corner of the realm of life known as Lightning Gorge, slowly lifted his head. Gazing at the crimson pillar piercing the sky, a knowing look flickered in his eyes. I see. Just as these words reverberated, silver bolts of lightning began streaking across the sky as dark clouds rolled in. Asterisk crack. Asterisk suddenly, with a deafening thunderclap, a bolt of lightning suddenly tore through the sky, splitting it in twain. Compared to strong transcendents located far away like White Tiger and Little Tenth, the transcendents in the vicinity of Wuxia, like Nine Tails, Ling Er, Behemoth, and others, had already quietly gathered nearby, watching intently. What's Master doing? Ling Er, who had just returned, asked in surprise. He's forming a contract with a dragon. I didn't expect the commotion to be this grand. Explained Nine Tails, gazing at the towering pillar of flames, lost in thought. Vaguely, she could see countless flames intertwining, forming the image of a massive flaming dragon roaring toward the sky. However, while Nine Tails was deep in thought, a nearby young man in crimson armor seemed to have a clearer understanding of the situation. It was Long Shao, the first person in Misty Mountains to form a contract with a dragon. Though the dragon he had formed a contract with was merely a soul, now residing in the artifact, Inferno Dragon Scale Armor, in a way, he was a Dragon Knight too. But compared to others, his case was slightly unique. Heh, it looks like Misty Mountains is about to welcome its second Dragon Knight. Long Shao sheepishly smiled, his voice carrying a hint of anticipation. I can sense it, this newly born Dragon Knight will be extraordinary. A resonant voice echoed in the air. Faintly, one could see a phantom of dragon head manifesting on the crimson-armored youth's shoulder, gazing at the sky with an indescribable sense of gravity and awe. A master-servant contract, and not just any contract. Such an extraordinary phenomenon can only occur when one party possesses far superior strength compared to the other. A master-servant contract allows the exchange of some of their racial abilities. However, if there's a significant disparity in strength, the weaker party, upon receiving a portion of the stronger party's abilities, undergoes a dramatic metamorphosis, creating an impressive spectacle. In other words, the Red Dragon Queen, one of the 3 Dragon Kings of Dragon Island in Alicia, is going to undergo a profound transformation simply from acquiring a fraction of her partner's power. Are you kidding me? Just sharing a sliver of power has caused a demigod to undergo such a transformation. Then how powerful must the other party be? As a matter of fact, Long Shao had participated in the conquest of Dragon Island. Thus, the dragon soul was quite familiar with the aura of the Red Dragon Queen. Upon sensing her aura, he instantly recognized this Dragon King from Dragon Island. However, after a brief moment of realization, the expression of the dragon's soul changed slightly. Is it the divine tree? Only the divine tree would possess the kind of power that could cause the Red Dragon Queen to evolve merely by sharing a part of its strength. But, why would such a great being as the divine tree form a contract with a mere demigod? Murmuring in confusion, the dragon's phantom wore a look of deep bewilderment. Sylvan, by the ancient contract, we, the Red Dragon Queen, hereby form a covenant with His Eminence today. From now on, so long as His Eminence lives, so do we, not sure why it is we. Just translating it for what it is. At this moment, putting aside the confusion of the fire dragon soul, Hapus, Ruor, suddenly, a dragon roar, filled with extreme excitement and exaltation, reverberated through the sky. Visible to the naked eye, a massive pillar of fire surged at the horizon, causing shockwaves to ripple outwards, shaking the entire sky. Accompanying this sight was the seemingly endless flames rapidly contracting. In just a few breaths, the silhouette of a giant dragon emerged in the sky. Ut was the red dragon queen with crimson flames blanketing the sky receded back into her body. Soon after, an indescribable force began to surge within her. It was powerful and terrifying, it carried an inexplicable sense of vastness. Ruur, the dragon let out a deafening cry to heaven. Her eyes, like red gemstones, sparkled brilliantly, shining as bright as stars. She had advanced, truly advanced. In sharing a part of her master's abilities, she, the Red Dragon Queen, had stepped into Tier 5, the true God realm. It was almost unbelievable for her. However, suppressing the surge of excitement in her heart, the Red Dragon Queen focused her mind, sinking her consciousness deeper into her body. Her body continued to grow bigger. Her dragon scales, which had been the size of a palm, were slowly growing. Their hardness increased, as did her defensive power. But more than her physical transformation, the most significant changes were happening inside her body. Her spiritual energy and soul were resonating in unison under the guidance of a mysterious force. This mysterious force, the Red Dragon Queen recognized it. Its master, her voice, filled with excitement, called out "Master" from the bottom of her heart for the first time. However, before she could mull over it further, a warm voice suddenly echoed within her mind, "Calm your mind." Yes, hearing this voice, the Red Dragon Queen immediately focused, not daring to hesitate, her consciousness sinking back into her body. At the very moment her consciousness sank deep into her body, her mind trembled, countless unfamiliar scenes began to appear, flashing in her consciousness. It felt like memories, but more than that, it felt like a legacy. This was the Dragon Clan's inheritance. The Dragon Clan was a terrifying race. Despite their low population, their strength remained unmatched. This was because their legacy was buried deep within the bloodline of their descendants. With each breakthrough, a new part of the inheritance would be unlocked. Thus, in a way, any member of the Dragon Clan should never be underestimated, for no one knew what kind of inheritance they might awaken, nor could anyone predict what kind of ancient power they might discover. And now, the newly advanced Red Dragon Queen, a Tier 5 true god, was unlocking her inherited memories. She has some good fortune. Standing atop the Red Dragon Queen's head, Wuxia could not help but let out a sigh of admiration, his lips curling into a slight smile. He had not expected that after signing the contract with him, the Red Dragon Queen would actually directly advance. However, after some thought, it was not too surprised. The Red Dragon Queen had already been on the verge of Tier 5, with immense accumulation. By signing a contract with Wuxia, she received a portion of his power. Not only physically, but even her soul shared part of his essence. And that portion was enough to help her, who had been just a step away, to break through. This is an unexpected bonus. Touching his nose, Wuxia chuckled. What he initially thought would be a demigod-level mount had now taken a step into the true god realm. Just the thought of it made Wuxia a bit proud. After all, there were barely any true god-level combatants in the vast Misty Mountains at present. In the top-tier star domains, a true god could easily become a great general, guarding one of the territories. Even the most powerful forces in those star domains would not dare treat such an expert lightly. Yet now, a true god had become his servant, ahem. Forcing a light cough to suppress the joy and excitement in his heart, Wuxia raised his arm and took a glance. In an instant, a deep crimson flame surged across his slender arm. This was dragon flame, a highly advanced type of flame. So long as it was fueled by spiritual energy, the flames would continue to burn, carrying a temperature and intensity far beyond that of ordinary flames. This was an ability gifted to him by the Red Dragon Queen, Mastery of Dragon Flame. Moreover, Wuxia could sense that his body's physical strength had increased by about 50%, a staggering 50%. That was no small number. Though the physique of the elf race could not compare to the dragon clan, it was still significantly stronger than most other races. And now, on top of that foundation of being an elf, his physical strength had increased by 50%. Wuxia reckoned that now, he could physically wrestle with some of the more robust mutant beasts. At this point, my combat strength should have increased by about 30-40%, murmuring to himself, Wuxia began to have a clearer understanding of his void elf. A 30-40% increase in power might not seem like much, but considering Wuxia's formidable Tier 5 capabilities, it pushed his combat power to a whole new level, and this put a huge smile on his lips. At least in Tier 5, his void elf form had already reached invincibility among those of the same tier. His spatial abilities, coupled with the contract formed with the Red Dragon Queen, his offensive prowess had taken a qualitative leap. Who could possibly match him at the same tier? Not to mention, the Red Dragon Queen at his feet was also part of his combat strength. However, just as Wuxia was feeling satisfied, something caught his attention, making him pause for a moment. Raising his gaze, he saw that the massive dragon beneath him was slowly shrinking, as if she was using the divine ability, enlarging and shrinking at will. However, unlike the typical divine ability, enlarging and shrinking at will, the Red Dragon Queen's form was also changing. Well. In surprise, Wuxia seemed to have realized the cause and promptly focused his gaze. In an instant, a string of words appeared before him. Dragon Clan's secret technique, shape-shifting. As one of the most ancient races, the giant Dragon Clan possesses a secret technique that allows them to transform into any form. Some choose to transform into humans, others into dwarves, and some into half-dragons. Each dragon has their preferred form. A secret technique, similar to a divine ability, yet distinct from it. This was because a secret technique was exclusive to a particular race. For instance, this Dragon Clan's secret technique could only be learned and used by the Dragon Clan. And now, Wuxia's servant, the Red Dragon Queen, had awakened this secret technique, shape-shifting. For a rare moment, Wuxia found himself dumbfounded. Shape-shifting, a term he had not thought about in a long time. He had once considered it, and then let it go. As he became more familiar with his own true body, the term shape-shifting gradually faded from his mind. More importantly, with his innate talent, absolute evolution, Wuxia could temporarily transform himself. He just no longer felt the need to, nor did he have any use for it. Yet, just as he had pushed the term shape-shifting out of his mind, his servant, the Red Dragon Queen, was undergoing shape-shifting right before his eyes. Amidst a sea of flames, her figure gradually shrank and transformed, becoming increasingly delicate, increasingly alluring. Slowly, a slender humanoid figure emerged, not human but humanoid. However, upon closer inspection, one could faintly make out a stunning pair of ruby-like eyes. Her dragon eyes remained, but compared to her dragon form, they were now much softer. Most of the previous majesty was replaced with tenderness. Yet, this was of little importance. What mattered was that the Red Dragon Queen's transformation was still ongoing. A mysterious power flowed through heaven and earth before the churning sea of crimson flames in the sky rolled back and gradually draped over her figure, like a thin veil. Shortly after, a delicate hand suddenly stretched out from the depths of the flames. It was white as snow, warm as jade. At a glance, it truly embodied the phrase, hands as soft as young bamboo shoots, skin like congealed cream. Master, a soft voice called out as a figure slowly manifested within the sea of fire. Moments later, a young woman, around 17 to 18 years old, came into Wuxia's view. The young woman was incredibly beautiful, with an oval-shaped face and a pair of gem-like ruby eyes. Her eyes were crystal clear, with flames flickering within, making them appear rather mysterious. Long eyelashes quivered gently above her golden eyes with crimson pupils. Her skin was incredibly fair and had a faint pinkish hue. However, at this moment, Yu Ziyu's attention was drawn to the pointed ears on either side of the woman's head. They were just like those of an elf. Did she shapeshift into a blood elf? With a hint of doubt in his heart, Yu Ziyu gazed at this unfamiliar yet oddly familiar woman, a little surprised. At that moment, as if sensing Yu Ziyu's thoughts, the young woman gently parted her lips and explained in a soft voice, "Master, since this body of yours is of elven descent, I naturally chose to transform into an elf." "All right then," nodding slightly, Yu Ziyu understood. No wonder she took the form of an elf, it had to do with the race of my body contracted to her. Still, the results aren't bad. As he slowly lifted his gaze and took another look, Yu Ziyu was quite satisfied. She was indeed worthy of being the Dragon Queen. Though she was not that old, her appearance truly lived up to the standards of a high-class race. The more advanced the race, the more flawless their appearance. Among the high-class races, beauty was never lacking. Although this Dragon Queen might not be as world-shatteringly beautiful as the Mermaid Queen or the Elf Queen, transcending the boundaries of race, the girl before him had an extraordinary presence. She looked quite valiant and heroic. Her fiery red hair cascaded down to her waist. Her golden dragon eyes shone brilliantly. Her tall, upright posture was nothing short of perfect. Admiring in his heart, Yu Ziyu also praised her out loud. "Your transformation looks quite impressive, hee." Of course, with a soft laugh, the Dragon Queen pointed to two small red horns that had sprouted from her forehead and stated frankly, "My transformation is still a bit rough. I can't make these dragon horns disappear. It's already very good. For your first shape-shift, being able to achieve this is a testament to your skills and talent." With another round of praise, Yu Ziyu slightly turned his body. This was because the Dragon Queen had gotten too close, and faintly, there was a subtle fragrance unique to a woman tickling his nose. It was quite fragrant, but Yu Ziyu decided not to savor it. At this moment, noticing Yu Ziyu's slight shift in position, the Dragon Queen seemed to realize something and smiled softly. She stepped back and bowed deeply, introducing herself, "Dragon Queen, Dai Air, greets Master." Hearing her self-introduction, Yu Ziyu was taken aback for a moment before smiling and asking, "Your name is Dai Air?" "Yes, when I first gained sentience, someone called me Dai Air. Since then, I've always been called Dai Air." "All right then." Yu Ziyu nodded his acknowledgement. He was quite surprised by this. He had not expected that the Dragon Queen, who looked so valiant and heroic, would have such a gentle name. Interesting, with a smile in his heart, Yu Ziyu suddenly sensed something, and he looked up towards the sky. A white storm descended from the horizon, silver lightning tore through the sky. Soon, one expert after another arrived swiftly, without concealing their presence. "What's happening? Why is there such a commotion?" Before he even arrived, White Tiger's thunderous voice reverberated through the sky. "This guy, why is he always a step behind?" Shaking his head helplessly, Yu Ziyu found White Tiger's behavior somewhat puzzling. However, in a moment, another voice rang out sharply in the sky, "Lightning Dragon of the Dragon Clan greets Master, and also greets the Dragon Clan's newly ascended true god." The deep voice carried a trace of respect. It belonged to none other than Little Tenth, who was hovering high in the sky. The Dragon Clan had always revered strength above all. Upon sensing that the Red Dragon Queen's ascension to Tier 5 and realizing she was not an enemy, Little Tenth proactively offered a greeting as a gesture of respect. However, at that moment, his gaze shifted to the tall and heroic figure of a woman standing not far from Yu Ziyu, his eyes flickering with interest. He had not expected her to gain the Dragon Clan's secret technique, shape-shifting. This was known to be a very advanced secret technique. However, that was not the most important point. What truly mattered was that, as a secret technique exclusive to the Dragon Clan, no other race could use it. This meant that once one member of the Dragon Clan mastered it, any Dragon Clan member from the same side could learn it as well. In this light, it was no wonder that Little Tenth had rushed over immediately after sensing that a Dragon Clan member had ascended to true god. Paying respects to a true god was secondary, his main goal was likely to gain access to the Dragon Clan's secret technique. After all, Little Tenth was now the leader of the Dragon Clan. He bore the responsibility for the rise and fall of his people. "So, it's you," responding with a faint voice, the Dragon Queen's expression shifted as she gazed at Lightning Dragon in the distance. In the past, she had been utterly defeated by him, unable to fight back even a little. So, seeing him again, her fists clenched instinctively, as she had always held a grudge. However, after a moment of thought, she pouted slightly and moved closer to Yu Ziyu's side. As her master's servant, her fists could only follow the direction of her master's sword. Without her master's command, she dare not act on her own. At that moment, as if offering guidance, Yu Ziyu's voice gently echoed in the Dragon Queen's ear, "Little Tenth is one of my 10 great divine beasts." He must not be insulted. After this reminder, Yu Ziyu raised his gaze towards the sky and introduced her to the others. "This is the Dragon Queen, Dai Er, now my battle companion. You may regard her as an equal." "Understood, Master." In unison, Nine Tails, Bull Demon, and the other powerful figures could not help but exchange glances, their eyes flickering with various emotions. Regard her as equals, these 4 words were no small matter. In some respects, it was an official declaration that the Dragon Queen held a status within Misty Mountains equal to the 10 great divine beasts. However, after giving it a thought, it made sense. The Dragon Queen had already stepped into Tier 5 and had signed a master-servant contract with Yu Ziyu. Though the term master-servant contract did not sound pleasant, their relationship was clear. In fact, considering their connection, there were few in Misty Mountains who could claim to be closer to Yu Ziyu than the Dragon Queen. Thus, it was easy to imagine her future standing within Misty Mountains. After a brief introduction, Yu Ziyu dismissed the others. After all, the Dragon Queen was still a woman, and his servant. Being stared at by everyone like this was not exactly ideal. Moreover, Dragon Queen, having just broken through. She needed time to settle and consolidate her strength. With this in mind, Yu Ziyu stated directly, "Later, head to the realm of fire. There's a place there that's perfect for you to cultivate in." As he said this, Yu Ziyu turned his gaze to Nine Tails, who had not yet left, and added, "Nine Tails, make sure to brief Dai Er on the current territories and power structure of Misty Mountains." "Yes, Master." With that, Nine Tails glanced at the Dragon Queen with a curious look. A dragon, transformed into humanoid form, how interesting. However, noticing the Dragon Queen's outfit made entirely of fire that clung to her like a thin veil, Nine Tails chuckled and suggested, "Master, perhaps you should ask Old Ninth to craft a set of armor for Sister Dai Er." Stunned for a moment, Yu Ziyu glanced at the Dragon Queen's partially exposed skin and realized he had been somewhat careless. Although the Dragon Queen's fiery clothing made it hard for those of the same tier to see anything clearly, for someone like him, a Tier 6 Transcendent, it was easy to see through it all. In comparison, a suit of armor engraved with secret techniques would be much more appropriate. First, it would make it easier for her to travel around. Second, it would greatly enhance her combat abilities. A good set of armor could significantly increase her battle strength. With that thought, Yu Ziyu stated, "Go to Little Ninth later and request a set of armor. Make sure to tell him I'm the one asking. That guy likes to hoard his resources. If it's a stranger like Dai Er meeting him for the first time, he might not be willing to bring out the best materials." "Understood, Master." Responding promptly, Nine Tails turned to the Dragon Queen with a teasing smile and remarked, "Master really treats you well." Momentarily startled, the Dragon Queen bit her lip, saying nothing in return. Some things were better kept in her heart. Shortly after, as Yuziyu watched the Dragon Queen gradually follow Nine Tails away, his pupils became focused. In the blink of an eye, a luxurious status panel appeared before him: race, Giant Dragon Tier 5, True God Realm Innate Talent, Indestructible Dragon Breath, a fearsome dragon breath capable of swallowing up half a planet. It can transform into a blazing pillar of fire that can even tear through the fabric of space. Unique abilities: Indestructible Dragon Flame, a high-level flame exclusive to the Red Dragon Clan. As long as the spiritual energy is supplied, the dragon flame remains unextinguished. Dragon's Wrath: at the peak state of anger, the spiritual energy starts boiling, unleashing even more terrifying flames, boosting combat power by 50%. Flame Dragon Claws: wreathing the claws in dragon flame, the claws can melt everything in their path. Elemental Resistance: she possesses near absolute resistance to fire element, and a significant resistance to other elements. Furnace Body: her body itself functions like a furnace, constantly emitting terrifyingly high temperatures. Dragon's Prestige. Dragon Roar. Dragon Clan's secret techniques: shape-shifting. As one of the most ancient races, the Giant Dragon Clan possesses a secret technique that allows them to transform into any form. Some choose to transform into humans, others into dwarves, and some into half-dragons. Each dragon has their preferred form. Flame Hell: Dragon Clan fire element forbidden spell, chanting within a sea of flames, it draws an infinite fire element, creating a red magic circle that fills the heavens and earth, unleashing boundless dragon flame to burn everything to ashes. After going through the Dragon Queen's status screen, Yuziyu was filled with a sense of awe. Worthy of a dragon. If the Dragon Clan's secret techniques are the equivalent of the human race's divine abilities, then Dai Air already possesses two such abilities. More importantly, one of them is a formidable offensive spell. Just by reading the description of Flame Hell, Yuziyu could imagine how terrifying this technique would be. The power it contained was enough to obliterate a planet within a few breaths. And that was the might of a true god, experts capable of planetary destruction. Speaking of divine abilities, perhaps I should hone my own. Murmuring to himself, Yuziyu recalled his own elemental divine abilities: ice, fire, earth, lightning, darkness, light. Each of these 6 elements held a corresponding divine ability, but these abilities could only be considered ordinary compared to Dai Air's Flame Hell. Although these abilities in Yuziyu's hand could unleash a power far greater than the Dai Air's forbidden spell, it was due to his own immense strength rather than the abilities themselves. Just as Yuziyu was refining his elemental divine abilities, a group of uninvited guests was already approaching from beyond the starry sky. To say they were approaching was not entirely accurate, it was because they were still far too distant from Earth, and even farther from Alicia. They were merely at the edge of the Milky Way. However, if one were to look in the direction they came from, they would undoubtedly see 3 black planets, arranged in a triangular formation, slowly drifting forward. What was astonishing, though, was that as these 3 planets moved, endless buzzing sounds, akin to the cries of insects, filled half of the starry sky. It was quite a strange sound. Even though the place was deathly silent in the vacuum of space, the sound still reached the ears. Faintly, it felt as if the sound was arising from the very depths of the soul. Sharp and grating. Just hearing it could make one's scalp tingle. King, the scouts we sent have captured sight of that intact habitable planet. It's not far from us now. At our current speed, we can reach it in at most half a year. Good. A sudden reply rang out, piercingly sharp, shaking the entire starry sky. Visibly, the 3 black planets jerked to a halt at the sound. However, that was not the terrifying part. What was truly terrifying was, if one looked closely, the black surfaces of the 3 planets seemed to be writhing, teeming with movement. Simply put, they were alive. Indeed, these 3 planets appeared to be alive. At this moment, neither Wuxia nor Alicia knew anything about these unknown lifeforms. Currently, Alicia and Earth were maintaining a rare peace to a certain extent. Battles were only occurring in some localized places. And those were just the natives, stubbornly resisting their final struggle. Yet, in the face of the massive armies assembled from Earth and the world-shaking powerhouses arriving one after another from misty mountains, their efforts were futile. As a matter of fact, every month now, a new powerhouse would emerge from misty mountains to stand guard over either Alicia or on Earth. Currently, Earth was guarded by Golden Monkey, a Tier 5 true god, who took control of Earth in just a few days. Meanwhile, for Alicia, it was time for the little 10th to take over. Roar! Suddenly, amidst a mighty dragon roar, thunder and lightning filled the starry sky, plunging it into a fearsome storm. At this moment, over the 3,000 meters long lightning dragon spread his wings and shot towards Alicia. However, Lightning Dragon did not take the void road established by Wuxia, nor did he use the wormhole that Earth provided for misty mountains. For little 10th, the long journey through the starry sky was an excellent trial. Though the distance between the solar system, where Earth was located, and Alicia was vast, with his lightning-fast speed, it would take him only about half a month to get there. New York then, it would be just the right time to relieve Old Ninth, Brewmaster currently standing guard over Alicia. There was no concept of time in the starry sky. In the blink of an eye, half a month had already passed. And on this day, in a corner of the solar system, boom, a massive spiritual energy storm suddenly erupted, so massive that it spanned over an area as large as a planet. Right at that moment. Elements rotate, never to cease, a murmur escaped Wuxia, with the vast spiritual energy storm suddenly rotating faster, stirring a swirl of rainbow colors across the starry sky. Red like fire, white like ice. And that mysterious shade of purple. One color after another intertwined, signaling Wuxia's deeper understanding of the elements. He had now reached the point where he could infuse the void energy into the elemental-driven spiritual energy storm. And at the eye of the storm, the crimson heavenly eye on his tree form glowed intermittently, exuding an inexplicable indifference. At the same time, an increasingly profound aura flowed into the void space. At times, enlightenment struck, at others, comprehension deepened. In the alternation between these states, Wuxia had gained a clearer understanding of refining his elemental divine abilities. If nothing unexpected occurred, within a matter of days, Wuxia would be able to fully merge his elemental divine abilities, transforming them into an even more terrifying divine ability. But, as always, the unexpected eventually comes. On this day, while the starry sky remained as deathly silent as ever, with only a colossal tree rooted in space, quietly observing the movements of stars, a message suddenly spread like a storm, shaking the higher ranks of both Alicia and Earth. What? You're saying that little 10th discovered life forms beyond the starry sky? A deep voice echoed, promptly bringing a slight change in Golden Monkey's expression as he looked at an elf who had rushed through the wormhole to deliver the message. Yes, the 10th Great One sensed something unusual while on his way to Alicia. After quickly spreading his consciousness, he detected a hidden presence. When he struck out, he discovered that they were life forms he had never seen before. According to the 10th Great One, these life forms seem to have a hive mind, and are extremely fierce. Despite being a mere team of 10 Tier 3 Transcendent, they brazenly launched an attack on the 10th Great One. What's more terrifying is that after wiping them out, the 10th Great One felt an extremely horrifying presence coming from far away, as if some terrifying being had become enraged. As the elf relayed the events, he nervously wiped the cold sweat from his brow. And it was not without reason. It was simply because the figure seated on the throne before him was far too terrifying. Dressed in golden armor and wearing a golden crown, his face was cold as ice, like snow. In fact, the golden armor worn by Golden Monkey was forged from the scales of the Golden Dragon King of Alicia, a Tier 5 artifact. Not only was it impenetrable to blades or bullets, but it could also weaken elemental attacks. His golden crown too was crafted from one of the golden dragon king's horns. As a true god from Misty Mountains, Golden Monkey enjoyed significant privileges. Aside from his golden armor and crown, even his boots and a weapon hidden on his body had notable origins. But these details were irrelevant for the current discussion at hand. The key point was that, wearing this attire, a fearsome aura radiated Golden Monkey, carrying a trace of Golden Dragon King's dragon prestige. Just a slight shift in Golden Monkey's expression caused his terrifying presence to become tangible. Crack, crack, cracking sounds echoed as the jade-like palace began to show fractures. No wonder the Tier 3 elf was struggling to bear it. At this point, as if realizing his overreaction, Golden Monkey slowly retracted his aura, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Unknown lifeforms, and they're enough to make even little Tenth, who is on the verge of becoming a demigod, sense a terrifying presence. They must be some kind of terrifying race roaming the starry sky. Pondering in his heart, Golden Monkey's lips curled into a faint, playful smile. Seemed like someone had set their sights on them. However, what amused the Golden Monkey was that this group could not distinguish between prey and predator and was recklessly approaching them. Are they seeking death? In the boundless and desolate starry sky, the only constant was solitude. However, at this moment, in a certain corner of the cosmos, a sudden sharp screech pierced the silence, filled with sheer rage. Even the starry sky trembled. Looking up from afar, 3 black, vortex-like planets quivered incessantly, as if in fear. My children, amid the wailing, the voice grew increasingly piercing. Yet, upon listening to it closely, one could sense that this voice was not entirely filled with sorrow. Instead, it carried a sinister, cold fury, as if provoked. Go, my children, tear them apart. With another sharp screech, the 3 vortex-like planets trembled violently. Immediately afterward, a horrifying scene unfolded. From one of the planets, a dense swarm of black shadows suddenly rose. Each shadow was clad in black scales, their eyes were cold and soulless. However, even more terrifying were their long, sharp claws, gleaming with a chilling, eerie light. This was the Zerg, an exceptionally fearsome and merciless race. They were one of the few races that roamed the depths of the starry sky. Wandering across the cosmos, hunting continuously. Wherever they passed, nothing was left alive, not even a blade of grass. If the mutant locust disaster on Earth was considered a terrifying catastrophe, then the Zergs were like an upgraded and enhanced version of that mutant locust disaster. Not only did they seem to exist in endless numbers, but what made them even more terrifying was the strict organization and highly efficient division of labor within their swarm. This efficiency applied not only to hunting but to all aspects of their existence. For example, the Stinger Zergs, which specialized in hunting, would pounce on enemies without hesitation, attacking swiftly and mercilessly, with no regard for their own lives. Then there were the Sentinel Zergs, who specialized in tracking and were tasked with finding new species suitable for assimilation into the Zerg swarm. Once they discovered such a species, they would lead the army to assimilate them without delay. There were also Zergs that specialized in guerrilla warfare and harassment. In short, the Zergs were a highly organized and terrifying race, born for the battlefield. What made them even more horrifying was that the Zergs seemed to belong uniquely to this universe, to this era. To this day, no race that encountered the Zerg had been able to identify them. All that was known was their sheer terror. Wherever they passed, everything was reduced to ashes. The top factions of the Starry Sky, such as the Titan Star Domain and the Angel Star Domain, had united to give them a name, the Zergs. The Zergs were labeled as enemies of the Starry Sky. Lurking in the depths of the cosmos, their numbers were terrifyingly vast, spread across every corner of the starry sky. And now, the Zergs arriving in the Milky Way were just one of their more infamous swarms. A powerful figure had named this particular Zerg swarm the Hunters, a fearsome group born for slaughter. Screech, with piercing, shrill cries, tens of thousands of black stinger Zerg, resembling mantises but with sharp mandibles, surged like a tidal wave towards a corner of the starry sky. Leading the swarm were several Zergs that exuded a chilling aura of a Tier 4 transcendent. Cold and menacing, they stood like apex predators, exuding an eerie chill as they gazed at their prey. At this moment, in the center of Alicia, atop a towering structure known as the Tower of the Gods, several figures stood quietly. Indeed, this is a life form we've never encountered before. As he spoke, Little Tenth cast a deep gaze at a peculiar creature lying on the ground nearby. It resembled a bee but was far more grotesque, with razor-sharp appendages. This very creature had been spying on him from the shadows. Had it not been for the magnetic fields surrounding Little Tenth, which helped him sense it, he might not have noticed it at all. After all, this life form emitted no aura and blended seamlessly with its surroundings, invisible to the naked eye. This was a form of camouflage, a skill also seen in some of Earth's mutant beasts. The most famous of these was Zilien, whose camouflaging skills had reached a near supernatural level. But the issue here was that this entire 10-member team of strange creatures possessed the ability to camouflage, which allowed them to almost deceive Little Tenth with just Tier 3 strength. A moment of silence followed as Little Tenth's eyes flickered while studying these peculiar life forms. In my inherited memories, there is no record of creatures like this. After a brief hesitation, Little Tenth added another comment. I don't recognize these life forms either. Golden Monkey, who had arrived not long ago, suddenly chimed in. When classifying a life form, it was not just about their appearance. What was more important was their aura, abilities, and behavioral habits. In the previous era, the immortal martial era, where individual strength reigned supreme, it would have been difficult to nurture such a fearsome species that act as one unified entity. In other words, this species likely belongs exclusively to this current era. Just then, a figure wearing a helmet, Stellar Magneto from Earth, spoke up. I've already arranged for their genetic material to be analyzed. We should have a more detailed answer soon. N. Nodding slightly, a golden crocodile, who had shrunk to around 10 meters long using his divine ability, enlarging and shrinking at will, grinned and remarked, "Still, don't worry. No matter how powerful a race is, if they think they can challenge us, they're seeking death." That's true. Golden Monkey nodded in agreement. After all, they had a Tier 6 transcendent backing them. Other people might not understand the power of a Tier 6 transcendent, but Golden Monkey certainly did. To put it bluntly, if Master so desired, he could eradicate all life on both Earth and Alicia in a single day, every last one of them, including us. Such is the unfathomable power of a Tier 6. And our Master, he isn't just any ordinary Tier 6 transcendent. His strength defied reason, far beyond what mere common sense could ever grasp. Invasion? No, it's these unknown lifeforms that should be trembling. Once they realize whose domain they've dared to trespass upon, they'll finally understand the meaning of true fear. This fear, it won't resemble anything they've ever known, not even during their conquests of the strongest star domains. In those battles, there's always a chance, however slim, to retreat, to escape. But against Master? No such chance exists. Even the entities backing them will face utter annihilation. At this moment, deep within the solar system, unknown lifeforms from beyond the star domains, a soft murmur escaped Nine-Tails, who was quietly lying on one of Yuzu's branches, showing a thoughtful expression. After a moment, she glanced at Yuzu, who remained in deep meditation, and raised her gaze, asking, "Sister Ling Er, should we keep this news under wraps for now?" Nodding gently, Ling Er, who stood not far away, curled her lips into a smile and added, "Our Master has cultivated us with great care for so long. It should not be in vain, such a small matter isn't worth interrupting his cultivation over. What's more important is, as she spoke, Ling Er lifted her gaze, looking deeply toward the far end of the starry sky. That direction, of course, was where Alicia was located. Not to mention Old Fourth and Little Tenth stationed on Alicia, as well Golden Monkey, who has recently ascended to the true God realm, should be able to defend Alicia. That's true, Nine Tails chuckled lightly, agreeing. As a fellow Tier 5 Transcendent, she understood the immense power of Tier 5 Transcendent. To put it simply, if she and Golden Monkey were to fight to the death, it would likely take 10 days to half a month before a victor could be decided. As for killing one another, the chances were slim, very, very slim. If they could not win, they could always escape, could not they? Tier 5 Transcendents were notoriously hard to deal with. And now, on Alicia, aside from Golden Monkey, there was also Sarcosuchus, a terrifying existence whose physical body had stepped into Tier 5. In total, there were 2 true gods guarding the planet. Even if they could not hold their ground, they could at least hold out until reinforcements arrived from Misty Mountains. So, now was not the time to alarm their master. If something truly unexpected or unforeseeable happened, then they would wake him up. Considering all these, Ling Er and Nine Tails exchanged a glance, silently agreeing to suppress this news for now. Of course, this was only a temporary measure, because considering their master's training routine, they knew that he would be waking in a day or two. It would not be too late to inform him then. Meanwhile, in the starry sky surrounding Alicia. Swish, 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 with continuous sounds of something cutting through the air, one could visibly see numerous powerful figures shooting out from Alicia, heading straight into the depths of the cosmos. Leading this group were 2 figures. One, naturally, was Golden Monkey, clad in golden armor and wearing a golden crown. The other was a towering beast, as enormous as a mountain, its entire body covered in golden scales. Just a single glance, one could feel the cold and menacing aura emanating from the behemoth. It was none other than Sarcosuchus. Having undergone a second atavism, Sarcosuchus was far more terrifying than the restrained Golden Monkey. Just looking at him would send shivers down one's spine. This was Sarcosuchus, whose physical body had broken through to Tier 5. An absolutely terrifying presence, who could rival a Tier 5 Transcendent with just his physical strength. And now, Golden Monkey and Sarcosuchus, leading several other Tier 4 Transcendents, were all rushing into outer space. They had already sensed countless icy auras emanating from the far reaches of the cosmos. Cold and sinister, it was an aura that instinctively stirred aversion. That's really a repulsive aura, Little Tenth, cloaked in lightning, furrowed his brow. Who knows? Maybe these unknown lifeforms find your aura to be just as unpleasant. Golden Monkey burst into laughter, teasing him. Maybe, so, after a moment of contemplation, Little Tenth also agreed. This was a sense of rejection, an innate repulsion. There was no clear reason for it, but it was deeply unsettling. However, shortly after, as if sensing something, Little Tenth's expression suddenly froze, and he instinctively warned, "They're not far from us now. We'll likely encounter them in less than half a day." At this point, using the magnetic fields to sense the situations at ultra-long distance, Little Tenth momentarily paused. Then, after a moment of hesitation, he added, "But from what I've detected, there seem to be only about 100,000 enemies, most of them at Tier 2 or Tier 3, with only 8 at Tier 4, I see," Golden Monkey murmured softly, a thoughtful look appearing on his face. "Looks like it's a vanguard." "Probably," Little Tenth also nodded in agreement. "Let's deal with them first. Our master should be waking up soon. We can use these creatures as specimens to present to him as a gift." This sudden suggestion made everyone's eyes light up. They all could not help but look toward Sarcosuchus, the one leading them. None of them had expected the usually cold and detached Sarcosuchus to come up with such an idea. But everyone was indeed intrigued. They found the notion of using these unknown lifeforms as specimens and gifting them to their master a pretty good idea. Alright, let's go. Exchanging a smile, Little Tenth and Golden Monkey abruptly increased their speed, transforming into two streaks of blue and gold light, quickly distancing themselves from the troops behind them. Those two, Sarcosuchus shook his head helplessly, but he was not worried. Little Tenth's magnetic sense is quite exceptional, even Master had praised it. Since he said that there aren't many powerful enemies, there is no reason to be concerned. I'm really looking forward to seeing if they have any strong figures behind them. A deep murmur escaped Sarcosuchus's lips as a trace of anticipation flickered in his eyes. Half a day later, in a desolate region of space. Suddenly, spiritual energy surged. Asterisk boom, boom. Screech, 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 sudden sharp screeches echoed through the starry sky. Looking up, at the far end of the barren cosmos, a black wave suddenly trembled. Upon closer inspection, it was a mass of countless black, insect-like creatures swarming together. At this moment, the largest of these black insect-like creatures let out the sharpest screech, as if it were afraid or terrified. However, before they could react, boom, with a deafening crash, a golden staff that spanned across the starry sky smashed directly into the center of the black tide. Screech, 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 amid the wails of agony, countless zergs fell like raindrops. Some were even vaporized into blood mist without a chance to scream, evaporating into the depths of the cosmos. This was the power of a Tier 5 true god, who, with a casual swing from kilometers away, had devastatingly injured tens of thousands of zergs with a single strike. And yet, Golden Monkey had held back. After all, as Sarcosuchus had suggested, these zergs were to be collected and presented to their master as specimens. Moreover, their master preferred them alive. Simultaneously, from another direction, a devastating dragon breath descended upon one corner of the swarm. Sizzle, sizzle, in a flash of lightning and thunder, a lightning storm covering thousands of meters erupted. Visibly, two grotesque Tier 4 zergs were charred, their entire bodies blackened as if they had been scorched. But just then, screech, suddenly, a sharp cry came from the swarming zergs, as a massive creature, nearly 100 meters in size, burst forth. It had sharp, deadly claws and its entire body was covered in scales resembling black iron. Most terrifying of all, it had a long, piercing mouthpart, resembling a grotesque, oversized mutant mosquito, far more terrifying, tens, if not hundreds of times stronger than an ordinary mutant mosquito. This monstrous creature charged straight toward the incoming Little Tenth, tearing through space. Good. Come at me. Excited, instead of getting alarmed, Little Tenth beckoned with a hearty laugh. He had been eager to meet a true opponent, and this zerg, whose aura was near that of a demigod, was undoubtedly a worthy challenger. Roar! Letting out a dragon roar that echoed through the starry sky, Little Tenth accelerated into a dive, transforming into a bolt of lightning as he collided head-on with the giant mutant mosquito. Boom! The collision of their bodies caused a tremor that rippled through space, sending waves like those on a lake, spreading outward. But at that moment, Little Tenth's voice suddenly rang out across the stars, "There's no elemental energy, it's relying entirely on physical combat. Their natural claws and scales are on par with some of the best divine artifacts in Misty Mountain. It looks like this race focuses on physical evolution, continually advancing their bodies." In a tone of warning, Little Tenth's expression suddenly changed, for the massive mosquito's long, sharp mouthpart lunged toward him. Squish! It pierced through the lightning spiritual energy surrounding his body as if it did not even exist. Adding more to the dread, Little Tenth's prize dragon scales shook violently, and then shattered like glass. Damn, these creatures' mouthparts have evolved into something terrifying. For one of the rare moments, Little Tenth cried out in surprise as he swiftly transformed into a streak of lightning, retreating thousands of kilometers in an instant. As he glanced toward the injured part of his body, Little Tenth noticed that the shattered dragon scales had turned dark green. At the same time, a numb sensation spread rapidly from the wound. "Be careful, their mouthparts are poisonous." Once again, Little Tenth issued a warning as a silver-white glow erupted from him. Immediately, bolts of lightning intertwined over his wound, scorching the area black. Without hesitation, Little Tenth created a claw made of pure lightning and dug out the charred flesh. Although this was nothing more than a minor injury for him, barely even that, facing unknown extraterrestrial creatures like this, he could not afford to be careless. Should anything unexpected happen, being taken down here would be a severe blow to his pride. As for dying in battle, that idea had not even crossed his mind. Even if the Zerg swarm in front of them were multiplied several times over, they posed no real threat to him and his comrades. Meanwhile, far off in the distance, the approaching reinforcements, having heard about Little Tenth's encounter, kept their gazes sharp. Every word Little Tenth spoke was etched into their minds. Some of them, in fact, took out golden notebooks to jot down notes. This habit had been developed since the Misty Mountain forces began waging war in foreign territories, collecting enemy intel before battle. The more detailed the information, the higher their chances of victory. When facing unknown creatures like these, it was not their sheer power that was most terrifying, it was the unpredictability of their abilities. Simply put, the scariest thing about them was the unknown. Compared to races like elves and dragons, these life forms' greatest threat was their mystery. But once that mystery was unraveled, their so-called strength might not seem so intimidating. While Little Tenth continued gathering intel on the Zergs, nearby, Golden Monkey suddenly raised his hand and reached for a Tier 4 Zerg. Boom! The next moment, an enormous arm, tens of thousands of meters long and so massive that it blocked out most of the heavens, formed from starlight appeared in the starry sky. With a swift grab, it clenched tightly, capturing the Tier 4 Zerg amidst its despairing screeches. At that moment, Soul Search, Golden Monkey employed a terrifying and ruthless technique of the Demon Beast clan. Though cruel, it was effective and showed no mercy toward enemies. In moments, as if sensing something, Golden Monkey's face showed a flicker of surprise. "What is it, Golden Monkey?" Sarcosuchus asked as he slowly approached. "They don't seem to have much intelligence, no, more accurately, they don't seem to possess souls, at all. All they have is instinctual fear and terror." As Golden Monkey explained, he failed to notice that the Tier 4 Zerg he was soul-searching suddenly began to tremble, its body cracking as if unable to withstand the pressure. "Well!" A sudden exclamation of surprise rang out. As if sensing something, Golden Monkey immediately struck with a reverse palm toward the Tier 4 Zerg in his hand. Boom! With a terrifying roar, the creature was sent flying like a meteor, shooting thousands of meters away in an instant. And just moments later, screech, an ear-piercing shriek suddenly erupted from the creature, shaking the very soul. Even Golden Monkey faltered for a moment. As for the other powerful transcendents, their faces paled, as though they had been heavily injured. Many, such as the elders of the Elf clan and several dragons, had their spiritual energy thrown into disarray. And this, during a battle, was clearly fatal. In an instant, the entire battlefield saw the powerhouses of Misty Mountains retreat, their faces filled with disbelief as they looked at the Tier 4 Zerg that had been sent flying by Golden Monkey's palm. "What is that? How could it produce such a terrifying screech? I honestly thought I was going to die for a moment. Are you kidding me? A sound alone almost killed me." One exclamation followed another, and even the likes of Sarcosuchus and Little Tenth had their expressions drastically changed. Right then, a cold, sharp voice suddenly echoed through the stars, "Just wait. My children will tear you all to pieces." The voice, full of fury, was bone-chilling. At the same time, the Tier 4 insect creature that Golden Monkey had sent flying suddenly exploded as if it could no longer withstand the pressure. So, this is the true powerhouse among the insects. Murmuring softly, Golden Monkey gazed in the direction where the voice had faded, a glint of wariness flickering deep in his eyes. That screech was truly terrifying. It seemed to tear at one's very soul. No, not just the soul. It made the body tremble, and spiritual energy go completely haywire. In the face of that screech, tear for transcendence were as good as nothing. Golden Monkey was convinced that if the owner of that voice had been nearby, just that one screech would have been enough to claim the lives of half of the several hundred experts present here. Make note of this, their screeches are incredibly dangerous. And the being behind them, at the very least, it must be at Tier 5. With a word of caution, Golden Monkey exchanged glances with Sarcosuchus and Little Tenth in the distance. A solemn look crossed each of their faces. Without hesitation, Golden Monkey then said, "I'll go straight to Master." "All right," Sarcosuchus responded, adding, "With your speed, you should make it there in half a day." Golden Monkey nodded. Then, without a second thought, terrifying spiritual energy surged instantly from him with a thunderous roar, accompanied by a blinding flash of light. Consequently, the entire body of Golden Monkey transformed into a ray of starlight and vanished from the view of everyone present. A Tier 5 Transcendent, and a terrifying Tier 5 Adept in the power of the stars at that. The speed of Golden Monkey was beyond what most could imagine, presumably not far from the speed of light. Half a day later, in the depths of the solar system, boom, a ray of starlight suddenly tore through the darkness of deep space, zooming across the space. It was accompanied by an unabashed, terrifying aura that soared into the heavens. "Golden Monkey, what's wrong?" A voice of surprise echoed as a fox lying on a distant colossal tree rooted in the starry sky slowly stood up. However, before Nine Tails could inquire further, boom, the mighty storm of spiritual energy enveloping this stretch of the starry sky suddenly came to a halt. Following that, the roots of a massive tree, towering and stretching across the sky, began to gently sway. Upon closer inspection, one could see a humanoid figure emerging from the treetop of this gargantuan tree. It was none other than Uziyu's void elf form. At this moment, his true body was still cultivating, but the majority of Uziyu's consciousness had naturally descended into this form. "What's the matter, Golden Monkey?" A calm voice echoed, and a hint of curiosity appeared on Uziyu's face. It was rare to see Golden Monkey looking this flustered. "Master," amidst the response, the starlight weaved together, eventually materializing into a figure donned in golden armor, radiating a noble and imposing aura. At that moment, this figure clasped his hands respectfully and bowed, "Forgive this subordinate's rudeness for disturbing your cultivation, Master." "No harm," waving his hand, Uziyu casually dismissed it. It was just a moment of enlightenment, after all. To him, it was merely a matter of evolution points. As long as he had evolution points, his moments of enlightenment could be virtually infinite. So, he did not have the need to be overly concerned about such things. Of course, this was something Uziyu would not explain to anyone. The evolution points were his true secret. He could not allow anyone else to know. Not Golden Monkey, not even Nine Tails, or anyone else for that matter. The more people knew his secret, the more dangerous it would be. Not just for them, but even for Uziyu himself. All of this was because Uziyu had gradually realized the true nature of these evolution points. They were not treasures that could be compared to ordinary ones. They might very well be linked to the so-called supreme treasures of heaven and earth, those enigmatic and incomprehensible things of massive fortune. However, now was not the time to ponder such matters. Raising his eyes slightly and gazing at Golden Monkey not far away, Uziyu asked curiously, "I see your hands are stained with blood, what happened?" It seems Nine Tails did not get the chance to tell you yet. As if expecting this, Golden Monkey slowly pulled out several figures from behind him. There were 4 figures in total. Though their energy had been sealed, it was still possible to sense that 2 of them were Tier 3 creatures, and the other 2 were Tier 4. What was more important, though, was that at first glance, you had already noticed something strange about these beings. Looking at them, he could feel a cold and dark aura radiating from them. Additionally, an indescribable feeling of repulsion rose in his heart. Extraterritorial lifeforms, murmuring to himself, Yu's gaze towards these figures sharpened slightly. In an instant, countless characters intertwined, and one status screen after another appeared before his eyes. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.